There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise of the world becomes so loud, so constant, so suffocating that you can barely hear your own heartbeat anymore. And that's when something inside you starts to shift. Not because life becomes easier, not because people suddenly understand you, but because you reach a breaking point where you realize that the greatest danger in your life isn't being alone. It's being surrounded by the wrong people while losing yourself slowly. This is the moment when the mind snaps awake, when the soul stops whispering and starts roaring, when the quiet voice inside you says, enough. This version of me is done. And from that moment on, your entire psychology begins to change. You start noticing things you ignored before. You start feeling things you used to numb. You start seeing people's true intentions, even the ones you tried to justify, even the ones you tried to love. You start recognizing that the biggest weight you've been carrying isn't your struggle. It's the people who don't want you to rise. It's the energy you're absorbing from those who fear your growth. It's the disappointment of giving everything to people who wouldn't give you half. And suddenly, loneliness doesn't feel like a punishment anymore. It feels like clarity. It feels like breathing clean air after years of inhaling smoke. This is the turning point where you stop chasing validation, stop begging for support, stop waiting for someone to understand your vision. Your mind becomes sharper, heavier, stronger. You begin to understand that solitude is the birthplace of transformation. That isolation is not a cage, it's a construction site. That silence is not empty, it's full of answers. And with every day you spend alone, something powerful builds inside you. You begin to realize that your strength was never gone. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see it. That your potential was never small. You were just in rooms that couldn't hold it. And when that realization hits, you stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into places beneath you. You stop allowing people to drain you, distract you, or derail you. You become intentional with your energy, lethal with your focus, unapologetic with your standards. And then comes the most important shift of all. You stop fearing being alone because you finally understand the truth. Being alone isn't weakness. Being alone is power. Being alone is rebirth. Being alone is the version of you the world was never ready for. And when you look in the mirror during those quiet nights, when no one is texting you, when no one is clapping for you, when no one is checking on you, that version of you, the one that refuses to quit, the one that refuses to break, the one that refuses to stay small, that is the real you. And once you unlock that version, you stop needing the world's approval. You stop needing people to stay. You stop needing comfort, because now you finally understand you are not alone because you are weak. You are alone because you are becoming unstoppable. When you stop needing people to validate you, to notice you, to clap for you, you unlock a version of yourself that most people will never meet. Because the truth is, dependence has been training your mind to stay small. You've been conditioned to feel weaker when you're alone, to feel incomplete without attention, to feel lost without someone telling you that you're doing the right thing. But the moment you step away from that noise, the moment you disconnect from the world and reconnect with yourself, everything changes. Silence becomes your teacher. Isolation becomes your sharpening stone. Solitude becomes the environment where the real you finally emerges. Most people run from being alone because they're terrified of facing themselves. They'd rather drown in noise than sit with their own thoughts. They'd rather chase a crowd than confront their own truth. But when you're serious about your life, when you're truly committed to growing, you reach a point where you don't want noise anymore. You want clarity. You don't want opinions. You want direction. You don't want company. You want purpose. And that shift is powerful. That shift separates those who are built by the world from those who build their own world. Being alone forces you to take responsibility. There's no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to hide behind. Your excuses don't work anymore. Your stories don't protect you anymore. When it's just you and your thoughts, you see exactly who you are, your discipline, your habits, your strengths, your weaknesses. And that level of honesty is where transformation begins, because you cannot elevate while lying to yourself. You cannot grow while avoiding the truth. Solitude exposes everything. And even though it's uncomfortable, it's necessary. Pressure doesn't feel good, but it produces greatness. When you embrace being alone, you develop a different kind of strength. Not the strength that comes from having people around you, but the strength that comes from learning how to stand without them. You stop chasing approval because you approve of yourself. You stop depending on energy because you generate your own. You stop waiting for motivation because you know how to ignite it internally. You build a mental engine that keeps going even when the world is silent. And once you build that, nobody can take it from you. You begin to realize that loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is when you feel empty. Solitude is when you feel full of purpose, full of focus, full of ambition. Loneliness comes from needing others. Solitude comes from relying on yourself. Loneliness drains you. Solitude builds you. And when you shift from loneliness to solitude, you stop feeling abandoned and start feeling unstoppable. The stronger you become alone, the fewer people you need. Not because you don't love people, but because you don't depend on them for strength, confidence, direction, or validation. You've learned how to carry yourself. You've learned how to inspire yourself. You've learned how to fight for yourself. And that independence makes you a force. It makes you harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to break. People start noticing too. When you're strong alone, your energy changes. You walk differently. You talk differently. You move differently. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop entertaining low-level conversations. You stop shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. You stop giving access to people who drain you. Why? Because you finally understand your value. You finally understand your power. Being alone showed you that everything you were searching for in others was already inside you the whole time. Some seasons of your life are meant to be walked alone, not as punishment, but as preparation. Isolation is not exile, it's training. It's the universe removing distractions so you can build the discipline, clarity, and strength required for the next level of your life. When you're alone, you hear the things you were too busy to hear before. You see the things you were too blind to see before. And you grow in ways that you never could while surrounded by noise. So don't fear being alone. Don't fight it. Don't run from it. Use it. Let it shape you. Let it sharpen you. Let it build a version of yourself that doesn't crumble when people leave, that doesn't fall apart when plans change, that doesn't lose identity when support disappears. Become the type of person who walks alone and still walks strong. Because once you become strong alone, you become unstoppable with others. This is where true strength comes from. Not the presence of people, but the absence of dependency. Not from the comfort of crowds, but from the courage to stand alone. Embrace that. Own that. Let solitude be the birthplace of the strongest, most unshakable version of you. When you're alone, the world becomes a mirror. Every thought, every insecurity, every dream you buried under noise comes back to confront you. And the first thing you realize in that silence is that the people you thought you needed were often the same ones slowing you down. The second keynote isn't about isolation being glamorous or easy. It's about understanding that your greatest leaps in life will happen when you stop depending on others to move for you, push for you, or believe for you. It's about stepping into a mental space where you no longer look sideways for validation, but forward for purpose. This is where strength is born. Not in crowds, not in applause, not in comfort, but in those quiet, private battles no one sees but you. When you walk alone, you learn the truth about your capacity. You see how much energy you wasted trying to fit into environments that weren't made for you. You see how much potential was trapped inside you because you kept waiting for someone else to say, now is the right time. Alone, there is no permission. Alone, there is no schedule. Alone, there is just you and the next step. And that step becomes your responsibility, your power. You start to operate with a different intensity because you realize there is no safety net, no backup plan, no cheering section. And instead of fearing that independence, you begin to crave it. You begin to understand that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't depend on anyone to push them. Being alone teaches you clarity. You see who you are without distractions. You see your flaws without filters and your strengths without exaggeration. You start working on yourself with honesty because there's no one left to blame, no one left to impress, no one left to hide behind. Isolation forces growth the way fire forces metal to transform. You can't stay the same when you're alone. You either break or you sharpen. And the truth is, most people avoid being alone because they're terrified of what they might discover about themselves. But you're different. You showed up to this journey because something inside you knew that the next version of you wouldn't be built through comfort. It would be built through confrontation. In the second keynote, the message is simple but powerful. Solitude is not weakness, it's training. It is the gym for your mind, the battlefield where you learn discipline, patience, and resilience. Alone, you learn to control your emotions instead of letting them control you. You learn to get up when no one is watching. You learn to speak life into yourself when no one else does. And most importantly, you learn that your power does not come from being surrounded. It comes from being centered. You become unstoppable the moment you stop expecting anyone to save you, support you, or carry you. And when that mindset clicks, you go from feeling lonely to feeling untouchable. Walking. G alone doesn't mean walking without love. It means walking without limits. It means cutting off the people who only show up when they need you. It means releasing the friendships built on convenience, not loyalty. It means letting go of those who cannot grow with you, even if history tries to keep you tied to them. The less you hold on to the wrong people, the more room you create for the right breakthroughs. Being alone is not the end of connection. It is the beginning of elevation. The world respects the person who can stand on their own feet. The world listens to the voice that echoes from a foundation built alone. You become stronger, sharper, clearer. And when you reemerge, because you will, it won't be with apologies or explanations. It will be with power. It will be with purpose. It will be with a mindset that cannot be shaken because you built it brick by brick, setback by setback, night by night. So the second keynote reminds you, don't fear being alone. Fear being dependent. Don't fear silence. Fear noise that distracts you from your greatness. Don't fear walking a path without company. Fear walking one without purpose. Your strength is not found in crowds. It's found in the version of you that rises when no one else is around. And when you master that version, you become a force the world cannot ignore. There comes a moment in your life when you finally realize that strength was never supposed to come from people clapping for you, validating you, praising you, or standing beside you. Strength was always supposed to come from the part of you that nobody sees. The part of you that cries in silence, fights in silence, breaks in silence, and heals in silence. People often believe that being strong means having a crowd behind you. But the truth is the strongest people on this planet built themselves in the dark while everyone else slept. They built their confidence. E without applause. They built their discipline without witnesses. They built their belief in themselves without anyone reminding them they were capable. There is something brutally powerful about knowing that the only person you can depend on is yourself. Not in a sad way, not in a lonely way, but in a way that frees you from the emotional chains that keep most people weak for their entire lives. When you learn how to stand alone, you become unshakable. You become untouchable. You become unstoppable. People fear being alone because when the noise stops, they finally hear the truth. They finally feel the weight of their habits, their excuses, their laziness, and their wasted potential. They finally have to confront themselves instead of hiding behind distractions, relationships, or crowds. But the ones who embrace that silence, the ones who sit with their thoughts and push through the discomfort, they evolve into a different breed. They step into a version of themselves that isn't controlled by the world's opinions because they learned to move before anyone gave them permission. They learned to fight before anyone cheered. They learned to rise before anyone believed. When you master standing alone, nobody can manipulate you with abandonment. Nobody can break you by leaving. Nobody can destroy you with silence because you've already conquered the hardest battlefield, the one inside your mind. Being strong alone means waking up every day and choosing discipline even when no one would know if you quit. It means grinding when nobody is watching, building when nobody cares, and believing when nobody supports you. It means showing up for yourself because your future demands it, not because the world is clapping for you. People love to depend on others because it gives them someone to blame. When life gets hard, they say they didn't help me, or they didn't support me, or nobody was there for me. But when you decide to be strong alone, you remove that safety net. You eliminate excuses. You take full ownership. If you fail, it's on you. If you win, it's on you. If you rise, it's because you did the work. And that type of responsibility forces you to level up in ways comfort never will. There is a different type of power that grows inside you when you stop waiting for people to rescue you, when you stop needing validation, when you stop begging for loyalty from people who were never built to hold your weight. You start walking differently. You start thinking differently. You stop settling for halfway friendships, halfway effort, halfway dreams. You demand more from yourself because you finally understand your value. Being alone gives you clarity. It removes the noise. It strips away the illusions. It reveals who truly belongs in your life and who is only there because you were convenient. It exposes who drains you, who distracts you, and who delays your growth. It forces you to choose yourself in a world that constantly tries to pull you away from your mission. People will call you cold. They will say you change. They will say you're distant. They will say you don't care. But what they really mean is that you stop prioritizing them over your purpose. They're upset because you stopped giving them access to a version of you that was soft, confused, and easily controlled. They're upset because the new you doesn't need them. They're upset because you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. Strong, disciplined, driven, and focused. When you learn how to be strong alone, you begin to realize that loneliness and isolation are not punishments. They are training grounds. The world's greatest breakthroughs happen when you're away from the crowd. That's where ideas come alive, where discipline sharpens, where mental toughness grows. Alone is where you meet the real you. Alone is where you learn what you're capable of. Alone is where you become dangerous in the best possible way, because when you come back from that silence, you come back with intention. You come back with purpose. You come back with clarity. You come back with a fire that people can feel before you even open your mouth. Most people never reach their potential because they run from solitude. They're addicted to noise, addicted to validation, addicted to comfort. But if you want to be powerful, truly powerful, you must be willing to endure seasons where it's just you and the grind. You must be willing to walk roads that people don't understand. You must be willing to sacrifice temporary companionship for permanent growth. Because the truth is simple. Greatness is a lonely road. But that loneliness builds the type of strength that lasts a lifetime. You must embrace the mindset that you are enough, that you can carry your own weight, that you can build your own foundation, that you can rise without a hand to hold the day you stop depending on the world to fuel you. Is the day you become unstoppable. Being alone doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware. It makes you sharp. It makes you disciplined. It makes you resilient. And while everyone else waits for permission, waits for motivation, waits for support, you'll already be moving, already growing, already winning. Because when you're alone but strong, you don't break. You build. You don't quit. You evolve. You don't dim. You rise. And that's when the world finally realizes you were never alone to begin with. You're being sharpened for the life you were born to live. When you walk away from this message, I don't want you to feel inspired for a moment. I want you to feel transformed for life. I want something inside you to shift permanently, like a lock turning inside your soul. Because being alone isn't a weakness. It isn't a punishment. It isn't a phase you're supposed to escape. Being alone is the furnace where your future self is forged. It's the place where the strongest version of you is carved out of silence, pressure, and truth. And if you learn how to stand tall in that space, if you learn how to breathe when no one checks on you, how to push when no one claps for you, how to rise when no one believes in you, then you become a force that nothing in this world can bend. You've been taught to fear solitude. You've been tricked into thinking you need validation, support, encouragement, or applause to become great. But listen to me, every legend, every champion, every person who broke the cycle and changed their family tree did it first by standing alone. They made decisions that nobody understood. They walked paths that nobody else was willing to walk. They cut away people who held them back. They fought battles no one saw. And that's why they won. That's why their names mean something. That's why the world remembers them. And your name can carry that same weight if you stop running from the one thing that can unlock your power: solitude. So here's your challenge. Here's the part where you stop hearing me and start hearing yourself. The part where you stop being entertained and start being activated. I want you to look at your life and be brutally honest. Who are you when Odie's watching? Who are you when the room is silent? Who are you when the people you thought would stay leave? That's the real version of you. And that version, if you commit to strengthening it, can rebuild your entire life from scratch. You are not fragile. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply untrained. And solitude is the gym. Solitude is the battlefield. Solitude is the teacher. Everything you think you lack is waiting for you on the other side of your willingness to be alone long enough to grow. This is your moment. This is where the weak quit and the strong are born. This is where you decide whether you'll keep searching for people to save you or whether you finally become the hero of your own story. Stand tall, stand firm, stand alone if you must. But whatever you do, do not go back to depending on people who were never meant to carry your destiny. You are built for this. You are designed for this. And when the world finally sees who you become, they'll realize that the strength they admired was created in the moments when you had no one but yourself. Be alone, be unshakable, be unstoppable, and above all, be strong.